My name's Mickey Wernick. I've been playing poker 45 years.
My name's Dave Colclough. I guess I've been a professional poker player for over 10 years and been playing for over 20 years.
I'm Dan Carter. I've been playing poker for 6 years.
My name is John Shipley. I've been playing poker for approximately 17 years.
I've seen the poker scene change dramatically over the years.
The conditions of today are just unbelievably different.
Originally I was backing greyhounds, and then as that became increasingly difficult, I moved into poker.
I was sort of instantly addicted to it.
Because I started watching my stepdad play online when I was 16.
Even though I was probably mid-late 20s, they would see me as the young kid on the block, and poker was very much an underworld in those days. It certainly wasn't respectable as it was now.
It's a look at you like, it's like looking at a bank robber, But you play poker for a living, poker, You're going to fetch a gun out, and shoot them,
It's the sort of thing I didn't even really tell everybody at work I was doing. It was only a few close friends I'd do.
If anybody asks me what I actually do for a living, I would describe myself as a survivor, but I've actually survived through gambling.
We started a poker club in Wolverhampton, which was like a 5-card stud. We used to play Thursday, Friday and Saturday, just 3 days a week. And then we progressed into the casinos.
There wasn't so many competitions around in those days, and it was mainly cash games.
We started playing like little £5, £10 tournaments, and as people come to sit down, we just absolutely boomed. Everybody liked the game, anybody could play the game.
The way I was playing was slightly different to the old school professionals who would play too tight. I was perhaps a little bit more aggressive, and they weren't used to somebody coming in and betting their draws aggressively.
The more experienced they are, generally I try and not get involved with the experienced players at the table.
All the youngsters have come in again, and they've actually taken this level of aggression way further, again, and they're miles more aggressive than even I was or am now.
In the old days, you get loose players, you get mad players, you get gamblers, you get tight players, you get aggressive players. Now they like to think these young kids from Sweden, Denmark, they're ultra aggressive and they raise everything.
Say I'm playing in a no-limit hold'em tournament, I've got the likes of Mickey, Wernick or Dave. I might not be able to take advantage of them, but I just think that they make mistakes that, if they're at my table, then I might be able to benefit from those.
The first thing I try to do is suss out what kind of players there are. So after half an hour, he's aggressive, he's passive, he thinks he can play, he can play. Pick it up easy,
So although you were playing cards, you were playing other individual players.
It's a common sense game, if you've got to do 7, you throw it away. If you've got an ace-king, you call, or you may raise or whatever.
The person who you're really trying to get the money off, you tend to know exactly how he's going to play, because he does play the same way.
Well, he's a weak player, or he's a strong player. I'm not going to try and bluff him, he can carry on, I'll leave him alone this tournament. I always use 2 words, better situation. Being as, sometimes you've got a nice stack, they've got a nice stack, there's a few small stacks, and you've got maybe a pair of queens or whatever, and the flops come. And you're sort of thinking you may be in front, but you're not sure, you could lose all your stack here. So even if you're in front, no shame, pass, pass the winning hand, doesn't really matter.
Obviously the internet grew from something small and just kept on growing with the introduction of more and more actual internet companies.
It was a new thing to a lot of people, so everybody was going on, everybody was trying.
The size of the games was very small, and from then on it grew. Up to 2002, I wouldn't say it was that significant, but after that it just took off.
The amount of poker players in 6 months multiplied up by 100 or even 1,000 times. It was just a massive boom.
There's so many players now compared to just 5-6 years ago, and of course if you speak to some of the older players, they'll tell you, 30 years ago there was only a few hundred players that you regularly see, and now there's tens of thousands of regular players.
When I was playing Vegas in the World Series in the 80s, there used to be 300 players.
But the numbers wouldn't ever significantly go up or down.
Now I go to Las Vegas, 7,000, you'd never got that without the internet.
There's the smaller pool of players also meant a lot less good players, which meant more money to be made.
It was all God bless the internet, and how has this all happened, and everybody kind of filled the boots for a few years.
I find that poker has improved so quickly in the last few years because of the internet.
And you're playing a lot younger players, although you might see somebody who's been a losing player 1 week, because they're of that generation where they're able to learn and are trying to learn, then obviously they're changing all the time.
They would be gamers, and the whole idea of PC games is a lot of the games you just try something. If this works, great. If it doesn't work, then you try something else, and then you try something else, and you try something else.
And there's that many of them doing it, so they are getting the results.
It was a completely fresh approach to poker, and to be honest, a lot of the older players, such as myself, just didn't see this coming.
When they go on that internet, they're different class to somebody like me. They're playing 6 games at a time, and they're jumping, and they keep pressing the button. You know, and I can look at something now, roughly what the odds. They've probably got it to a fine art, what the odds are of drawing out on somebody or trying to bully somebody.
The new generation would analyse the percentages, and they'd find out exactly how much you should bet in certain situations, and how often the other person would fold, and they'd work out to a much more precise level where it was right to be aggressive and where it was wrong to be aggressive. And quite frankly, they changed the way the game was played, especially online.
Software such as Sharkscope and Poker Table Ratings, which is these sites, all they do is you look online and you basically can tell if someone's a losing or a winning player.
They actually data mine, and they track every hand that's played on a site. So you can find out, for example, how often somebody in the big blind will pass when you raise from the button. So if he's going to pass 60% of the time, if you always raise from the button, then you're going to make profit from this situation. So we've got this data mining exercise going on online, and then they're writing programs to interpret this data to tell you what to do in exact situations.
This software crunches all the numbers and tells you about the players. That's very useful, and anybody not using that online is giving money away.
We could get into a situation online where the standard just becomes unbeatable, in fact, unless you have a series of programs.
So I got a head start against a lot of online players with this software.
The sooner they could outlaw this data mining, the better. I don't think it's good for the internet sites at all.
Younger players have an advantage over the older players, because 10-20 years ago when you were playing live, the only way you get to talk about hands is when you go meet each other at the bar after the tournament, or when you're at the same table, and you don't really get that much time to talk about hands. Whereas on the internet, there's forums, there's software, you've your friends to talk to, email, MSN, whatever. So you're just talking about hands so much.
I haven't actually gone into those things, but I do understand how the younger generation that is used to going into chat rooms and using all those tools really do find them beneficial.
People like Johnny Shipley has been playing online now, but he dedicates himself to it, and that's what he does. So he knows every player and everything about it. It comes on the net.
Different people from different countries have different traits of playing. So if you suddenly find yourself in a hand against a player and you're not sure how they play, and you scan over and you see they're from Sweden, then you're more likely to think they're bluffing without actually knowing the player.
As a nation, for some reason, French players do seem to play a little bit looser than, say, German players who play very, very tight.
But if they were English, you would almost definitely say they were tighter.
If you put a group of 50 French players and a group of 50 German players, you might find 5 tight players in the French group and 45 in the German group. It is that much different, and for some reason there does seem to be a slight variation depending on where you're from.
As a general rule of thumb, Scandinavian players are regarded as maniacs.
Young, aggressive, kids in their mid-20s seem to have really advanced the game in those countries to a very high level, and a lot of the best internet players are Scandinavian for some reasons.
I'm up against a player and I have a difficult decision. I'm not going to look at his location and think, oh, cool, because he's from Germany. I think people who do that are just looking for an excuse to call.
I mean, when you're online, you can't read somebody, can you? I mean, they like to think they can. How can you read somebody online?
The games are easier in the evenings /night, because in America there's so many more players. There's which means there's generally going to be more fish.
And if you're in form, you get on against him and win, but if you're out of form, it makes no difference on the net because you're still going to lose anyway. Whereas I go on, I don't know anybody, I'm just playing the game. And that's the difference. If you play the net and play good, you can be, you know, successful, make a lot of money. But you've got to have the dedication to be able to sit there and do it.
Over the years, the internet has become increasingly more difficult because people are getting a lot better at it.
I'd known that it was going to get a lot harder, then I'd have played a lot more back then. I think now it's probably about as hard as it ever will be, but that's what I hope anyway, because I'm beating the game now. If it gets any harder, then I'm going to have to start putting more time into my game and play more hours.